Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here with us today. We're going to embark on a really incredible journey, one that builds a bridge between the incredibly microscopic and the unfathomably large. Today, we're diving into a profoundly fascinating philosophical text known as the Fifth Truth, which is actually part of a larger work called the 10th Word. We're going to unpack a concept that really tries to make sense of scale, of nature, and what the author describes as a cosmic scale of compassion. You know, when we look up at the night sky or just think about the sheer, massive scale of the universe, it's so easy to feel, well, insignificant, right? Kind of lost in the grand mechanics of the whole shebang. But the text we're exploring today, it flips that perspective completely on its head. It actually asks us to look at the tiniest, most meticulous details of life to understand the overarching reality of existence.
Okay, let's dive into this with a quick thought experiment. Imagine you're standing right square in the middle of a massive, packed sports stadium. Tens of thousands of people are absolutely roaring, someone's spilling a drink a few rows back, the music is blasting over the loudspeakers, it is just sheer, deafening chaos all around you. Now, in the midst of all that volume, could someone possibly hear a single quiet whisper from one person sitting way up in the nosebleed section? No way, right? In our human reality, that is literally impossible. Our senses just get totally overwhelmed by the macro, by all that noise. But the source material we're digging into today uses this exact kind of contrast to set up a highly abstract theological concept. It takes this super relatable reality of getting completely lost in the crowd and asks a massive question. What if the universe doesn't operate with our limitations? What if, on a cosmic scale, there's an awareness so precise that it can isolate the exact equivalent of a single whisper in the roar of a universal stadium?
Section 1. The Fifth Truth's Question, From the Stadium to the Universe.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark, deliberate contrast the author is setting up. The author of the 10th Word is essentially challenging us to stretch our imagination way past what human ears and minds can process. The core philosophical premise here asks a really striking question. Is it possible that an owner of limitless compassion who sees the smallest need of an ordinary creature and meets it would not hear or meet the greatest request of their greatest servant? Do you see what they did there? We have the absolute smallest, most hidden needs of ordinary creatures placed directly next to the greatest requests of the greatest servant. It's a rhetorical question used to establish a baseline. The argument is basically saying, look, if you can observe a system that successfully manages the absolute smallest, most easily overlooked details, it completely defies logic to think that same system would just turn a blind eye when it comes to the largest, most significant matters.
To really ground this massive philosophical claim, the text points us right back to the natural world. Think for a second about the delicate ease and precision we see in nature, specifically when it comes to feeding and caring for weak animals and babies. Think about the sheer fragility of a newborn bird or a tiny mammal out in the wild. I mean, they are completely defenseless, totally unable to fend for themselves. And yet somehow, the mechanics of nature step in and provide exactly what they need, exactly when they need it, often from completely unexpected places. The text uses this specific, really tender example as visual, observable evidence. It argues that this isn't just a string of lucky coincidences. Actually, this extreme care for the most vulnerable points to a universe that is actively managed with limitless mercy and compassion. It's asking us to look at that warmth and provision in nature as a literal signature of the entire system's overarching character.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 2. Proportional reasoning, connecting the microscopic to the cosmic.
We're now entering the central mechanical engine of the author's argument. This is where the text shifts from those beautiful, warm observations of nature into a much more rigorous, logical framing. We've looked at the micro, that fragile baby animal, and we've pondered the macro, the grand requests of the universe. To bridge those two extremes, the author relies on a specific tool called proportional reasoning. Now, don't worry, we aren't talking about some dry mathematical equation here. Instead, think of it as a philosophical bridge. The logic goes perfectly like this. If you observe profound, meticulous sensitivity and compassion at a microscale, like the universe perfectly providing for a helpless little creature, then logically, that exact same sensitivity must exist and even be amplified at a macro scale. It's the idea that you can reliably figure out the character of the whole thing just by looking at its smallest parts. The universe doesn't suddenly change its fundamental nature just because the scale gets bigger. The care shown to the tiniest details, that's the proof of the care given to the grandest designs.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact structure of the text's logic. On the left side, we've got the microscale, small creatures, tiny needs, and unexpected provision. This is the observable world. It's that fragile baby bird getting fed. And on the right side, we have the macro scale, the greatest servant, massive requests, and limitless compassion. This is the unseen cosmic guarantee. The proportional reasoning we just talked about acts as the arrow connecting the left side to the right. By proving that the universe pays such extreme attention to the minute details on the left, the text lays down a rock-solid foundation to guarantee those grander, universal truths on the right. If the system doesn't drop the ball on the tiniest whisper of a need, it is for sure not going to drop the ball on the most massive cosmic requests.
So the crucial point is section 3, trust in the whole, the theological resolution.
You see, the entire purpose of the fifth truth, mapping out this micro to macro compassion, isn't just to win some abstract philosophical debate. Ultimately, the text aims to build a profound, unshakable trust in the universe's overall design for you, the individual. The author wants you to realize that if the universe is this deeply aware of every single detail, then you are inherently safe, seen, and accounted for within the grand scheme of existence. To really anchor this philosophical journey, the text draws upon a foundational scripture. It cites a verse from the Quran, Surah Taha, chapter 20, verse 46, which beautifully reads, "Fear not, surely I am with you, I hear and I see." The author utilizes this verse neutrally but powerfully as the ultimate synthesis of the fifth truth. It perfectly encapsulates everything we've just discussed about scale and proportional reasoning. That statement, "I hear and I see," is presented as the divine guarantee that both the quietest whisper in the stadium and the greatest cosmic request are registered simultaneously. It textually anchors the theological promise that limitless compassion is always paired with limitless awareness, basically dispelling fear and replacing it with absolute rock-solid trust.
As we wrap up our exploration of the fifth truth today, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. We've traveled from the vastness of the cosmos all the way down to the feeding of a fragile little animal, all to explore the idea that nothing goes unnoticed. So, let's turn that lens inward. Have you ever experienced a situation in your own life where you felt truly heard or provided for in a tiny fleeting moment? A moment where a deeply hidden need was met in a way you just couldn't explain? Perhaps, according to the framework we've unpacked today, that tiny moment wasn't just a random coincidence. Maybe it was a microscopic reflection of a much larger, limitless compassion. Think about that. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and I really hope this perspective brings a bit of wonder into your day.